On the account of the modification, thought, this consciousness is apparently veiled and is not realized. We are literally lost in our thoughts, lost in our notions, our beliefs. We can even dignify it philosophically as a paradigm. We are lost in our paradigms. I mentioned last time about this book that I'm reading, and it's quite extraordinary how this thought is being used to actually dispute the existence of consciousness, or to dispute consciousness. The author seems to subscribe to the notion that consciousness is some kind of epiphenomenon. It's some kind of illusion based on some kind of feedback. Anyway, so it's not only is consciousness is apparently veiled and not realized, it's actively denied by some very clever people. They who are sunk in the mire of attraction and repulsion are unable to reach this realization. Certainly attraction and repulsion isn't just to do with carnal and physical desires. It can be to do with intellectual repulsion and attraction as well. They are caught in the net of thoughts. Such have been my ancestors, on account of their desire and hate and the deluded perception of duality. They lead the life of vermin. It's not a very pleasant description, is it? But all you're doing is following your snout in one form or another, whether it's in a physical level or in a mental level. He in whom the ghosts of cravings and hostility have been laid, and the mirage of ignorant thinking and psychological perversion has been dispelled by the cloud of true inner awakening, he alone lives. It just seems to be missing the point to such a stupendous extent when we overlook our own consciousness. Being aware of our own consciousness, everything fits into place. Not in the sense that you have to make things fit into place. It fits into place in the sense of a certain tranquility, harmony, or bliss even, as it's been described here in previous chapters. For how can there arise concepts and percepts in the infinite consciousness which alone is? Well, clearly concepts and percepts do arise in the infinite consciousness, but these are limiting notions. But once we realize these are limiting notions, we can realize the ridiculousness of them, and we can ask ourselves this question. We realize the true nature of the infinite consciousness, which is free of concepts and percepts. I salute the self. Salutations to myself, the undivided consciousness, the jewel of all the seen and the unseen worlds. This rather archaic way of saluting the self is just a way of acknowledging the reality of the situation. You have indeed been reached very soon. It happens immediately. You have been touched, you have been gained, you have been realized, you have been raised above all kinds of perversions. You are what you are. Salutations to you. Salutations to you, myself, Shiva, the Lord of Lords, the Supreme Self. It's often Vishnu that's been described but here as the Supreme Lord, but here it's Shiva, which again I think supports the idea that there's more than one author here, because these were two different traditions, the Shivite and the Vishnuvite traditions. But for our purposes it doesn't really matter. I salute the self which rejoices in its own body, being established in itself, in full control of itself, utterly freed from the veil of self-imposed ignorance. That's thoughts and concepts. So we mustn't take too literally this thing about rejoicing in its own body. It's just body in the sense of being. It rejoices in itself.